For every victory you have in life, right, you got to relish in it for a little bit, but then you got to say, what's next?
Welcome to the Council of Dudes podcast. I'm your host, Vinny Brusco. I am a father, a husband, the founder of Agora Social Club, a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a certified life coach, and a facilitator of the Council of Dudes men's group. This podcast is here to help you tap into and follow your golden thread, that feeling that pulls you forward to become the best version of yourself. If you're someone who's into personal development and self-help and is looking to live a life of more alignment, then this is the podcast for you. Subscribe to the channel, click the notification button, and follow along on the journey of the show.
This is Jumpman Jay here at Agora Social Club, Council of Dudes podcast. Leave a rating, comment, like, and subscribe.
And here we go.
Put that medal on, buddy. Get that medal on.
Got all about it.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that.
I don't even know how you're standing right now.
A lot of ibuprofen, some Epsom salt, and I put the leg compression sleeves on last night.
Congratulations. Cheers to you, my friend.
Thank you, my brother.
Cheers. Stretch there, but
Thank you.
yeah, that's amazing. Did you? I wouldn't be able to walk. I've done 2 half marathons.
Yeah.
And are these guys on? Let's see. Can I turn these guys on? Your Instagram mic is on. It's green.
It's blinking green.
It's green. All right, cool.
All right.
I've done 2 half marathons, and afterwards I was completely annihilated.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not a runner.
Same here. I did the Yonkers half, and I was fine the next day. But I had been logging the miles, so I think my body was just accustomed to it. So.
Did you have did you go in with a goal and intention of a time, or were you just like, I just want to experience this?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people were looking at my times on my training runs, right? And they're like, yo, you could definitely do sub 4. And I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do sub 4 on my first marathon, because my training miles took me to 22 miles. You know what I'm saying? So 22, I knew like my body was going to be like, once you get to 22, it was going to start to shut down.
Do you think that would be more mental or physical at that point?
More physical, because at the end of the day, when you're doing these training runs, your body's got, like, no matter what you do when you're training, time on your feet is everything. So just being on your feet at a specific pace for 15, 16, 17 miles, once you hit that number where you stopped your training, that's when your body's going to be like, all right, well, we're going to turn on you a little bit. And that's what happened to me, like mile 15. I was like, because I was moving, and then I knew I had to dial it back. So mile 15, I was like, let me chill out, because the race really starts at mile 15. You go over to 59th Street.
I can't even imagine 15 miles. You're saying that's when the race starts for you.
Yeah. So
see, that's where I would be ending it.
Yeah.
Like 15, I'm like, the most when I was prepping for, it was a paint to paint half marathon trail run.
Okay. Trail run too.
A little different for sure.
It's completely different.
I did the 2 weeks before, I was like, let me just log in like 15 miles just to get past that threshold.
Yep.
And I think that definitely made a difference. But I mean, I can't imagine being like, yeah, 15, now we're going to run, more.
The race starts at 15. They say 0 to 14 is like you're cruising, which it was. It was enjoyable. Then you got to the 59th Street Bridge, and it was like, and that's another thing too. The crowd really carries you. I didn't believe that. But then when you get out there, you're like, holy crap. Like you feel like a superstar for a day, because people you don't even know are giving you fives and like legitimately cheering you on. And then you get on the 59th Street Bridge, and it is just you and, 10,000 other guys. And there's no crowd. It is silent. You're just hearing yourself breathe. You're hearing people like a scene from Band of Brothers up there.
Yeah.
People were just dropping, man. Like the cramp sniper was out. So people were like hamstring, quads. People were locking up on the bridge. That's when everybody starts to either like walk or really slow down their pace. So I was like, listen, we're just going to run across this bridge. We're going to drop back a little bit pace wise. And then once we get off, you kind of come down, and then you're on First Ave, and it's like, so you're just like, holy you're just going. And it's like, it is let me tell you something right now. If you can run the New York City Marathon, and I seriously started running like 6 months ago. So in 6 months, I've done a half and a full, and to do the New York City, which is one of the tougher ones to do out of the majors, it is a phenomenal experience. Hands down, one of the most mentally, physically, and spiritually challenging things I've ever done in my entire life.
So let's dive into each one of those, because I think that that's a really important avenue. So let's go with the mental. Obviously, so the 59th Street Bridge, a complete mind fuck. You're coming over, it's silent. You're not allowed to listen to any music or anything like that, right? No headphones?
No, you can.
Okay.
But like I chose to shut my shit off.
The whole time?
No, just going over the bridge. So
interesting.
I set up a playlist for every borough I was in. I had music artists from that borough.
That's cool.
Staten Island, I started with some Wu-Tang, Brooklyn, of course, Biggie, Jay-Z, and then so on and so forth. And when I got to the 59th Street Bridge, I was like, oh, shut it off.
Did you have the Beastie Boys in there?
Yes.
Okay, good man.
I wanted to hear my footsteps.
Yeah.
I wanted to hear my breathing cadence, and I wanted to hear the other people around me. So I shut it off. And that was humbling.
What went through? What were all three of those factors? What was your breathing? What were the other people? What was going through your mind at that point?
So the reason why I wanted to hear myself breathe, because you could hear other people breathing, right? So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't, breathing too fast. The name of the game is when it gets hard, obviously your heart rate's gonna spike a bit, but you want to control your breathing. I feel like as long as your lungs are good, you can get through anything. So I was just really focusing on my breathing cadence, but I was paying attention to the other people around me and understanding like how they were breathing. And I'm like, these guys are sucking wind up here. So I got to make sure that I stay calm. And then when you're up there and you're hitting the metal, it's like clink, clink, clink. So now I'm like, okay, my cadence needs to be like this. So I'm just kind of dialing in everything, because it is like a climb, because every bridge is its own monster, because all bridges are a hump. It depends on how high it is. And so that grade will turn boys to men. So 59th Street Bridge is kind of tricky because it is steep, then it levels down, and it comes down. And when I'm telling you, bro, it was wild. To me, that's the worst bridge of the whole thing.
Yeah, so I do jujitsu, and I think breath work and breathing is such an important part of it. And you could tell the difference when you're rolling with someone and they're like, and it's more it's the cardio that's taking them out. It's not the pressure. It's not the maneuvering. It's that's what's taking them down. And if you could actually use that against people in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, where you can almost time their breathing. You could feel their heartbeat, and you're like, okay, now, if you really can dial into it, but also being able to control your own breath and having those long breaths. But when you're running and you're at mile 15, 16, it's like, how do you prevent yourself, other than just being mindful of it, from just going into that heavy chest, upper chest breathing? Yep.
You got to just remain calm. That's the name of the game. Remain calm, because once your breathing gets out of sync, you're done. Because then, the lactic acid levels start to spike a bit. You become hypoxic, and then now you have to stop. Your heart rate spikes. You got to chill out. So that was the name of the game, was just focus on my breathing. And then I was kind of just going through like my own like dark thoughts, because like you get the good guy and the bad guy when you're up there, man. Like anytime anything gets tough, it's like, you should quit. You know what I mean? And then you have the other side that's like, nah, keep going. So you have to pick which one you're going to listen to. And my whole thing was like, well, we're not going to walk. We're not going to walk any part of this, right? Unless like your toe falls off, then whatever. But I was like, I'm not walking. So I think I got to like mile 22, and it was like cramping. I was like, all right, let me try to run through this. Then I locked up. Quad locked up, and I was like, all right, cool. But it was a Gatorade station right there. So I hit a Gatorade and a salt tab, and I was back in the fight. And then I just kept going. So that was the only time I really had to like slow it down and like walk a bit, because my quad and it was just like, it just locked up on me. I was like, damn.
So what was the dark side of you saying, other than like just stop? Like because obviously you could just say just stop, but then to me, when you go into that depth and you go into that darkness, as you start to level up, it gets way more granular. It gets way more specific. It knows your weaknesses, and it will find those weaknesses, and it will just kind of wedge its way in there. So what were some of those thoughts that were going through your mind on a detailed level?
On a detailed level, the dark side was like, you're a failure. If you stop, you're a failure. My biggest thing is like, I'm not getting a DNF. We're not doing that. Not today. And so, like you said, like the dark side will play into those voices. And it was like, just stop. Just stop. And I was like, can't do that. Right. So the more I pushed is like, all right, you're hurting. You should really stop. And I'm like, nah.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, because like, your body's going to send signals to your brain, right? And you can only tolerate but so much pain. But I really feel like if you focus in on what suffering really is, to suffer is to really live. So the more you suffer, right? There's someone who is laid up in a hospital bed or at home who can't suffer in the manner that we get to. And I say get to because we choose to do this, go out and put our body through these rigorous events. That is a blessing to be able to do that because there's people who don't have the physical capability to do that. So that is a version of suffering. So I chose to wake up and do that to myself, but I understand that that's just me honoring the gifts that God gave me. So I got to go out there and honor those gifts. And no matter how much it hurts, there's someone who would trade places with me to be able to do what I do on a daily basis because they can't physically do it. So when the bad guy was saying, you should stop, this hurts a lot, the good guy was like, there's so many other people that would love to indulge in this pain. And that's what got me going.
So now on this, obviously that can lend and bleed into the spiritual aspect of things, right? Absolutely, absolutely the good and the bad, the dark thoughts and the clear thoughts and the thoughts that are propelling you forward. What was outside of those, what was the spiritual experience of how you started and throughout it and then how you ended?
The spiritual aspect is I felt like, so my grandmother passed away in 2012. Oh, I'm sorry, 2010. She passed away in 2010. And I always feel like anytime I get to a space where I'm in like a spot in my mind where I feel like I'm going to quit something, I feel like she kind of like taps me on the shoulder. Like, you got this. And I swear she was with me going over all these bridges and through this run. And so you just get like this boost of energy out of nowhere. And I really feel like I've considered my grandmother my guardian angel. I feel like she was with me the whole time. So that's where, I was in conversation with God and just kind of thanking him for allowing me to get up and do this and honor these gifts that I have, because like I want to do difficult things in life so I know that I'm capable of it, because I think a lot of people get super complacent, right? And then you can't progress in life if you don't push the needle a little bit. So every time you get to a space where you feel like you're successful or you feel like you've accomplished so much, there's more to do. There's always more work to do. The question is, are you willing to do that work? Right? So I always look to God to be like, what should I be doing? And how do I become better? And I just kind of let, God lead the way on that. And that's how I really feel like that's where growth comes from. It's like, I think you really need to have a spiritual connection and whatever it is that you believe in. There's a lot of people that aren't super religious and they're very spiritual, because there is a huge difference. I consider myself a spiritual being, because religion can get, misinterpreted. So, I believe in the pillars of religion, but I'm a more spiritually based human being. So I'm not so rigid because I understand that humans are human, right? And they're going to make mistakes. They're going to do things that maybe would be horrible. Because I do believe that people believe if you are this religious person that there's no room for fault. You can't curse, you can't drink, you can't do this, you can't do that. And we're human.
Sure.
So we're born with the original sin. We're gonna fall short, of course, on a daily basis,
of course, moment to moment.
Yeah, and I feel like people be like, "Oh, you're this like spiritual guy, and you had a beer." Like, what? I'm like, come on, man. Like,
Right.
It's that kind of stuff. So, but spiritually, man, God was with me yesterday, and my grandmother was there with me as well.
I remember when I finished the first time I did Pain to Pain, the half marathon. At the end, they have like these drums, dun 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 dun, right?
Yeah.
And I'm coming into you end up ending at Inertial High School, and you come onto the field. And as you're coming over, I just hear pop, 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 pop.
Yep.
And I'm just like, I'm like holding back tears, man. The emotion. And then the part of me is like, oh, get over it. You're in a half marathon. Relax, buddy. Calm down. But there is something to that like you're putting yourself through a chosen difficulty, a chosen pain.
Yep.
And leading up to the amount of miles I clocked and just waking up at 4 a.m. and running in the dark with the headlamp. And, you almost see it as this movie, right? Like it's this arc of this movie and you could see it scene by scene. And then when it comes to this ending, it's like, oh, right. It's like, it's such a weird relief. But then to your point, it's like, what's the next thing? Yep. So how do you challenge yourself, but then also keep in mind that, being grateful, being grounded in that you accomplished something and then being able to say, all right, there's still more.
That's a great question, man. Just living in the present, man. Like, I think that's the key, right? Just for every victory you have in life, right? You got to relish in it for a little bit, but then you got to say, what's next? So patting yourself on the back is great, but like we can't live there because then we will never get to a space where, there's room for continual growth because you capped it off at this, I never thought if you asked me 6 months ago if I could run a marathon, I'd be like, you're out of your mind. And in 6 months, I ran a half and a full, maybe an ultras in my future, right? You never know, but I need to constantly push that envelope. I refuse to be complacent because complacency in my line of work kills. And as a human being, that leads to stagnation. And then you just end up, going down a weird hole.
Yeah.
So I just always want to push the needle just a little bit.
What made you want to run the New York City Marathon? Was there a certain thing that just clicked for you that you said, I'm going to do this? So I competed in a jiu-jitsu tournament. And for me, I was kind of thinking about my whole goal was to compete once every belt. I felt that I was getting promoted to my pro belt relatively soon. And it was almost like this, you want to call it serendipitous thing where I got the inclination to compete. And then I got the email, hey, this competition's coming out. It was the same when I competed at a blue belt, a white belt. And I was like, and then that voice was like, well, you said you were going to do it once per belt. So here's your chance. And then it became like this battle within myself. Like, do I want to do it? Do I want my family to come? How am I going to show up? Am I prepared? And so it became this feeling, right? The golden thread that I call it, right? It's this feeling that came from here that was like, you're going to do this and you're going to go after it. And you said you were, and you're going to honor your word and you're going to go after it. Got a gold medal. And there was so many serendipities along the way to that.
Yeah.
But for me, it became this feeling of like, it stood out. The feeling stood out of every other kind of inclination that you get. So was it something like that came to you, arose and said like, you're going to run the marathon, or was it something like, hey, we should do this?
Yeah, it kind of fell in my lap, man. And so the New York City Marathon is one of the tougher majors. So that was one thing that was a motivating component for me. Like the toughest of the majors. Yeah, let's tackle that. But my guys over at AM7. So AM7 Run Club is a group of individuals who run in the honor of Alexis Martinez, who was tragically killed. And they're the two founders, which is Lito Gill and Michael Almonte, who are guys I really look up to. Very, good stand-up human beings. And they created a space where I was able to get in there because it was kind of tough to get in there because it's a lottery system and so on and so forth. So I was able to run with the NYPD, and they got me a slot in there. So it was almost like divine intervention. Like God created that space. I meet these guys, and in 6 months I decided I'm going to be a runner, right? Something I fucking hate, right? And they're like, yo, we got you into the New York City Marathon. You're running with us. And I'm just like, well, I got to get it done. I'm going to quote Vincent Brusco on this one. He says, put difficult things on the calendar and just get it done. You put something on the calendar and it forces you to get ready and man up and get shit done. And so, they created an opportunity for me. I didn't want to let them down. I didn't want to let myself down. So I said, we're doing it.
Yeah, I think putting things that are difficult on the calendar definitely serve as a line of demarcation, a goal, a finish line. But and it also proves, obviously, it's all in the work, right?
Yep.
Because then when you cross the finish line, you do get this moment of great, or tears are streaming, or you got a gold medal, you feel great, you take the pictures, you feel great, and then it's like that goes away pretty quickly. Like very quickly.
Very quick.
Like you got the medal on, it's Medal Monday, absolutely. But by like Friday, it's kind of like, okay,
What's next?
What's next?
That's what I'm thinking, you know? Yeah, that shit goes away quick, man, because like it's all the preparation, like you said, right? The preparation, then you're out there for however long, and then it's done. And then, you know, you take a few pics, and then it's like, then the soreness starts setting in.
Yeah.
Like,
Reality clicks.
yeah, you're either telling
Right.
yourself, I'm never doing this shit again, or hey, let's put another one on the calendar. And I got another one on the calendar already. Yeah, I'm doing Miami in February, which is going to be way easier because it's flat.
Right.
So that I can kind of put a little bit of a, I want to go sub 4. So to knock off 30 something minutes as possible. I just work in the pacing. And now that's thrown into the training log. Like, all right, this is what we got to do to get sub 4. And that's the name of the game for me, sub 4. I got to sub 4 it. So.
I want to go to your starting of your Instagram every day. Greeting, go over, because I'm going to want to butcher it. So greetings and salutations, and then
So I go, greetings and salutations, beautiful people. First things first, all honor and praise to the Most High, the Creator, the Alpha and the Omega. I usually say the GM in the skybox for extending my life shot clock. Forever grateful, never take a day for granted. And then I go into my spiel.
So where did that come from?
Yeah, dude, so that's like my thing when I wake up in the morning. That's what I tell myself, you know? So I just kind of took my affirmations and then just put that shit out into the Instagram universe. That's kind of something that I say to myself every day. One thing that I learned is that waking up is a gift. It's not something that's given. There's people who go to bed and never wake up again. So, you know, when I started going to therapy years ago, my therapist was like, yo, just wake up in the morning and have something that you say to yourself. And then, you know, continue that. And it worked for me. So I said, maybe this might help somebody. I don't know. And it's crazy because if I go like 2 or 3 days and don't do it, people are like, oh man, we're missing this. Like my DMs get crazy, man. So I'm grateful that people appreciate what I do. Especially with that portion of my story. A lot of people tap into that. And then I usually give like a quote. And, you know, every morning I wake up, I do a little Bible study, meditate, and then I read a quote. And sometimes while I'm reading the Bible, like I'll get something from the Bible and then I'll just reword it and then say it in my own words. And people are always like, oh man, you know, that quote was crazy.
Like,
you know?
Yeah, it's Matthew.
Yeah. So I had one of my high school athletes took one of my quotes and put it in their yearbook.
Wow.
And I thought that was amazing because, like, sometimes we get on this app and sometimes you're like, you know, are people listening?
Right.
Do they really care? You know, and for a kid that I coach to say, "Hey, coach, is it cool if I use one of your quotes?" I said, "Absolutely, man. That's super dope that you even thought about me." He goes, "I pay attention. I appreciate what you do." I was like, "Wow, man!" And that was, to me, that's just a blessing. You know, if you can affect one person, then you're doing something right. You know what I mean? In a positive light, I should say.
Sure. So your morning routine. So in regards to Bible study, because it's something that, and I actually messaged you and I said, listen, I want to pick your brain about religion. You're like, yeah, let's do it anytime. So what better chance than now, right?
Yeah.
In regards to Bible study, what brought you to the Bible? Because for me, I've been listening to the app and I have it by my bedside and I read it here and there. And it's been these constant people in my life. They're coming up like, oh yeah, I read the Bible. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
And I had this inclination again to kind of dive into it and read it. And then just a few people kind of confirmed for me, like, yeah, I need to start doing this. Mm-hmm. So I started listening to the app and just from like a few listens, and this was a while ago, I got such a beautiful mantra of God will provide. Like that's been this arc Amen. in this current iteration of life. And it may take, the story of Abraham, not to get too deep on it, but it may take to that very last second, the very last second where you're like, okay, I'm going to have faith. But at the end of the day, God will provide. So what led you to kind of dive into the Bible? And, was it again, some serendipitous things? Was it something you were going through, looking for answers? All of the above?
All of the above.
Yeah.
God was there for me when I couldn't be there for myself. And I think that is what, because people always like, why are you such a believer? And I go, well, because I know the works that have been done in my life that are greater than me. And I remember praying for certain things, which I all currently have. And there's a saying, right? The saying goes, you want to make God laugh? Tell him your plans.
Right.
So I'm a very like A type of person, right? I'm A type personality. So I like set out what my career was going to be or what I believe my life was going to be. Mainly in my career. So I'm going to become a cop and I'm going to do this, and this.
Did you always want to be a cop?
Yeah, man. My dad was in law enforcement. My uncle was in law enforcement. So I grew up watching guys in like uniforms and like, that was always something. It wasn't the military. It was going to be like some form of law enforcement. And you kind of get lost too when you're like a teenager because then you're like, you're outside, you're doing dumb shit. And, you kind of lose that. But I always knew like I was, that was kind of destined for me. And for me, it was just one day my dad was like, hey man, what's the plan, dude? I got derailed a few times. I think my father was a little concerned. So I guess he was leaning on my mom a little bit to kind of be like, what's Jay's plan here? So I had a conversation with my mom one night after I came out, and I was like, not even in the headspace to even speak about what my life was going to be. Because I had just, come in from like having a couple of beers. I was a little half in the bag. And then my mom wants to have a full-blown conversation with me. And I'm just like, Mom, now's not the time. But, my mom was just like, your dad kind of wants to know what you're doing with yourself. What's going on, man? And I remember I wrote a letter to God that night. I back then, which was crazy because I was journaling like this. I'm like 19 and I was like journaling my life a little bit. So I've always liked to write. And, I said, listen, basically the gist of the letter was like, I don't know what the plan is. We got to put something in action. And whatever it is that I'm supposed to be doing, because my dad wanted me to be a cop, and for me to make my dad happy was like a thing for me. So I said, listen, man, I don't know what the plan is, but hopefully you got something in motion. And then from my mouth to God's ears, things just started unraveling. And I'm a firm believer in divine intervention. Like our destiny is written somewhere. There's certain things we can do to tweak the route to where we're going, but it's already written. Like, your time card, there's a date and time somewhere where we're supposed to pass. Hopefully we're old and gray and our family's around us and it's a beautiful way to go out. Or it could be in a tragic manner, but I want to, surrounded by my family and like love when I exit this earth. My mindset wasn't always like that. I always thought I was going to die like young, like James Dean, like a young, handsome corpse and like, in a blaze of glory. But as you mature and you get older, you're like, nah, I don't want that. I want this. Because I think men fear getting old. I think everybody fears getting old, but men in particular fear that.
Why do you think men fear getting old?
Because you lose as you age. Unless you're on
You also gain, though.
You gain wisdom, but you lose physical attributes.
What more could you, for me personally, I not to say I look forward to being the wise old elder, but I do.
That's because you're an evolved individual.
Thank you.
I think most men pride themselves on like the way they can physically assert themselves, right? So the older you get, the more you have to take care of yourself, right?
Sure.
So if you're not doing those things, because people are like, oh man, you're going to get old, you're going to get slower, you're going to get this. That's if you choose to. If you, reduce your alcohol intake, work on your sleep, find something that gives you a reason to wake up every day. Besides going to work, what do you do for yourself? If you can do that, I think that's what helps men age gracefully. And so most men aren't willing to do that. They will not cut their alcohol consumption. that whole like, rest when you're dead, that people really believe that. Like they don't really focus on sleep hygiene, right? And then they probably go to work and they don't enjoy what they do for a living. So they don't even know what their like purpose is in life because they're stuck in a job that they really don't enjoy, right? They go there Monday through Friday, whatever your schedule is. It sucks. And you come home, you don't even do anything for yourself and you go to sleep. So you can't possibly be the best version of yourself because you're not doing anything. In order to be a good man, you have to be a little selfish. Because if you can't take care of yourself, how can you possibly take care of anybody else in your circle? And I think men lose sight of that shit. That's why you got to surround yourself with men that are doing things to uplift one another, and they're constantly like putting out positive energy. Because that's a choice to wake up and put out positive energy. We all wake up and say, fuck this. But are you writing that energy before you leave the house? Are you rectifying that? Because like your interaction with someone could be the difference between them having a great day and a shitty day.
Well, especially in the line of work that you do.
Absolutely.
That's a very different, elevated, higher level situation that your interactions with people is vastly different than the majority of people walking around.
Absolutely, man. So I try to leave the house even, and that's why I'm so passionate about like overall wellness. It's not just, physically, am I taking care of myself? Yes, but I'm mentally taking care of myself and spiritually I'm taking care of myself. And I think if you have the Trinity, you are a complete individual. So, with me and like law enforcement, man, like that was something that I didn't gain that till later. Because when you're young, you're impressionable when you get on the job. Like, you kind of want to get out, be proactive. That's if you want to be that kind of cop. I wanted to be a cop's cop. I was super proactive, and you kind of get lost in the sauce, man. And I got lost, and I had to find my way. But God created a space where He humbled me. I got knocked off the high horse. Was a little resentful for a little bit. Questioned God at some point. But what that created, that experience, created a whole nother road that I went down, and I found who I really was. So I wanted something, but I didn't necessarily need it.
So a couple things come up for me. One is, it's funny that you say, this, and I have it written in my phone. Actually, just recently, it came to me the other day. It was like, the old quote is, yes. And you said it, man plans, God laughs, right?
Yes.
And what I realized was, God doesn't laugh, God aligns. So we plan and we think that I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and I have all these plans. And then God would never laugh, but God goes, I'm going to put you back on track. Right. So that comes to me. And then the other thing is that, it's so funny that, we hear about manifestation and all these ideas of like creating the reality, creating the man you want, creating the life you want. What do you want? And we often outsource these things to these tangible 3D things, whether it be a car, a watch, or whatever, an accolade. But there's so much behind that is, showing up in a way that aligns with who you are as a person. Right. Yeah. And in doing so, what do you do when God gives you everything you want, right? What do you do when God gives you the car or a version of it, right? We have this idea of, I want this thing, but you get it in a version of it. And how do you show gratitude in receiving it? And then what do you do with it once you get it? What do you do when God gives you everything you want? How do you answer that calling? And then how do you show up again and be grateful and then still be, have goals and aspirations? And it's just been something that's been on me personally. Those two things is like, yeah, God, you make a plan and God will put you right back on that path. Yeah. And not to make this overly spiritual, but there is something that pulls you corrected to your direction, right? Yeah. It course corrects you. And I think so much of it is, going back to who you were as a child, going back to that feeling of childlike wonder. And you talk about, doing things that are selfish, right? And there's a million quotes on this wall, but one of my favorites is the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. And it's so true. How many people show up in the world and just kind of drudge their way through, and that's just who I am, and that becomes your personality, and that's just how you live, and that's how you die.
Yeah, man. It's unfortunate that people kind of go through it like that, but I love the fact that you said that God aligns, because I think I was on the wrong path for a little bit, and He kind of righted the ship.
But you also have to do the work for
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. But like he brought me to a place where I had to do the work. Understand? So it's like, I didn't know that I needed it. He was just like, it's time. And so I did the work, and it was 7-year process. And it was like, slowly but surely just chipping away. And that's exactly what I did. And at the time when I went through whatever it is I went through, I was mad. I was pissed, but it all worked out for the best. So sometimes you got to like let go and let God do his thing,
Yeah. So letting go is something that I definitely have a problem with, for sure. And obviously you mentioned meditating and journaling, and those are all amazing. I do sensory deprivation, and those are all very much so amazing ways of pouring yourself out of your mind, right? Clearing out that monkey mind, and then allowing yourself to kind of be present and let go in a sense. But then there is this reluctancy, I think, that most people come up against, is how do you let go of such power that you perceive you have as a human? I'll give you my most recent experiences. I was in church, I go in, not in a formal mass setting. I just go in, I sit and I pray. I just sit there. And there were these group of old ladies, and they're saying the rosary, Spanish, Latin, English. And I'm really feeling it, right? I'm really like into it. I'm like, oh, this feels great. Like I'm really into this. And then the voice, right? That darker voice goes, you're going to give away all your power to something you don't even know exists. Oh, and I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I was like, shit, where did that come from? So I think what's important is, and I think it's also what you said in regards to, and we're going to circle back to letting go, but letting that voice be heard, right? When you're coming over the bridge, it's like, just quit.
Yeah.
You don't have to do this.
Yeah.
You have to almost sit with that discomfort and let that voice be heard. And that alone, I think most people are not comfortable of letting go of those dark thoughts.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, well, who am I if I think that? What a horrible person I am.
There's power in that, and hearing that voice and being like, nah, I'm good. There's power in recognizing that something wants you to quit. See, people have to understand, right? When you start to become aligned in a certain space, the opposition will try to pull you away from that. So good and bad is always present. The question is, are you strong enough to tell the bad voice, I hear you, but I'm not going to listen to you? A lot of people succumb to that voice. Less people take the higher road and go, I'm with this guy. And that's why you got to be very aware of what's presented to you in your life. Because when you become super like locked in, I don't know if you ever noticed this, but like when you get really like locked in with your scripture, your daily routine, somehow, for some reason, life gets extra noisy and extra busy. It takes you away from that. That's the opposition. They don't want you to be aligned like that. So they're going to put distractions and things in your way, and they're going to try to knock you off your pivot. But the name of the game is remain steadfast. So you got to be locked in. And it's not easy, but you have to build that strength, that spiritual strength to be like, nah, I got it. This is something that really balances me. This is something that keeps me locked in. So I need to do this so I can be the best version of myself. And there is power in that. And I think a lot of people, they look at the word submit, and it's like, it's a negative word. But submitting to God's will is one of the strongest things you could ever do. And I say this to people, and they look at me and they go, because they don't know how to process that. But letting God lead you in whatever direction that you need to be in, because we want things in our life that we don't necessarily need. We live in a society of acquiring. We need to acquire all the time. We need to get this and get that. But you can't buy happiness. I don't care how much money you make, because you can work and work and work and have millions of dollars. But if you're not present, right? If you're not living in the space where like the people you love get to experience you, what are you really working for? You're just working to acquire, right? And how much, like, you just said, like, what do you do when God gives you everything? Sometimes it's not God giving you everything. Sometimes it's the other guy that's working. You gotta understand, there's always two at play here. And so sometimes they'll put something, in front of you, and you'd be like, Because I know a lot of us have been in situations like, this might be too good to be true. There's a price that comes with that. There's no shortcuts in life. And if someone says, pops out of nowhere and say, hey, That's something for you. It may not be what you need, so we have to understand that balance. And I feel like a lot of people don't understand that balance, because I've been there and I've seen that side. I understand that whatever's for me is for me. It'll come in his time, not when I want it. And my path, like I said, my path was derailed, but for me to take that detour was a blessing. And I learned so much going the long way. Like, that is the story of my life. Nothing has ever come easy. I always take the long way. That's just the way God created it. And I'm like, listen, I'm with it, because I've been doing this a long time now. So it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, listen, embarking on the journey, and also I think to your point of saying, it's going to present itself in some way, shape, or form. And then how do you handle that? And then when you do get derailed, how do you bounce back from that? How do you handle the derailment? How do you handle when something goes off kilter? And how quickly can you get yourself back up and keep on going? And it is about being locked in, but then you go to social media and there's so many modalities and so many breath work and this tea and that thing and this supplement and this morning routine and this bedtime routine, that you can get completely lost in what you actually should be doing for yourself. And it just becomes this proverbial checklist that you go through. And if you're not present for it and it's not impacting you, like I was doing the cold plunge every morning and I took so much from it, right? Walked away. Am I doing it now? No. But I have this time in my life, this season of my life where I was up, treadmill, sauna, cold plunge, and it served me for that time. Yeah. Now I'm like, all right, I have a little bit more time on my hands in the morning. I'm with my kids a little bit more, right? Which this is the season of my life where I just need to be super dad, right? Most impressionable time of their lives, 9 and 5. So you can you could beat yourself up over that derailment. You could say, I'm not doing the plunge. And I do, right? I do. Yeah. But they're natural, those natural. Of course. And it's like, but where can I, Todd talks about it all the time. Todd Cucci goes, where could you find the window? Where's the window? For him, it's a run, right? He finds these windows of running, but where could you find the window? And it could be for reading scripture. It can be for a quick meditation or a journal. The window could be different, right? But as long as you're finding it and taking action on it is the bigger long play. But a lot of people want that quick fix and that, Instagram, Amazon Prime result. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up Todd. I told him yesterday that, he's a phenomenal human being, because those jewels that he drops, like that, where's the window? I'm happy you brought that up, because that's what I do. Like, I find the time to, and I got that from him, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, because we have an allotted amount of time for specific things. And I always, like I said, I'm a person who constantly wants to become better. So I'm trying to find the window to become better. So whether it's, reading a few books or reading a few pages in a book, making sure that I'm journaling every single day, because that's something that really keeps me balanced. Making sure I'm doing the things that are making me better, but finding the time to, because life does get noisy. It gets hella busy, but we got to find time to improve who we are. And I think that's clutch. And I think a lot of men need to lock in with that.
Welcome to Agora Social Club, the Westchester's hub for guys to gather, connect, and unwind. In the last 6 years, I've been facilitating a men's group called the Council of Dudes. And within that 6 years, I've realized that guys need a place where they can get together, connect, and build community. A place that's not the gym, that's not jujitsu, that's not the bar, but a place where guys can come with no ego and grow and develop together. So here we have our chess table. We're gonna be having monthly chess lessons and our Take a Book, Leave a Book library. Some of these I've read, some of these I haven't. Quantum physics to personal development to fiction. We also have our record player area. In the last few years, I've become very obsessed with jazz music. And if you don't know how to play vinyl, no big deal. It hooks up to your phone via Bluetooth. We have artwork from California to local artists. We have these small little work tables. So if you want to hang on the couch and get some work done, you can just come pop them open. And we also have our little workspace here with quotes from Muhammad Ali, Albert Einstein, Theodore Roosevelt. We also have our coffee bar, small fridge, and more quotes and artwork over the wall. Head on over to agorasocialclub.com, sign up for our free 7-day trial, and with that, you will get a key fob. Scan your key fob, and you have access to this space from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. So if you're a guy in the Westchester area and you're looking to gather, connect, and unwind with like-minded men, head on over to agorasocialclub.com. You have the Cam Hanes, you have the David Goggins, that's a version of locked in. Do you think you need to get to that caliber of locked in to achieve those things or achieve your goals?
No, I mean, everybody's different.
Of course.
Like, I feel like you got to find what your locked in is. I mean, me is just making sure that I move my body every single day. I meditate and I journal. And when my meditation there's prayer in there because, when we pray, that's when we talk to God, right? And when we meditate, it's when we hear God. Sometimes I get these waves of things that come into my mind, and I feel like that's just me listening. And if a random thought pops into my head, it's not random. It's something that I believe the higher up wants me to hear. So as long as I'm doing those things, I'm good. And like moving my body looks different every single day. It could be me doing some imam work. It could be me doing some going for a run or just basic strength training, man. And my new thing is like combat training. Like it's something that I want to get into, right? Because I feel like every man needs to, I have a decent baseline, but I need to get better, and that's something that I told myself I'm going to put that on the checklist for 2025. It's just something that I need to get done.
What, like is it Black Sheep? Is that the Tim Kennedy school? Black Dog, Black Sheep?
It's black something. I don't remember.
Like it's like jujitsu, shooting, rucking.
So I got the shooting. The shooting's right there, man. I was a SWAT guy for 10 years. You don't lose that skill set. But I do believe that we need to. Well, I believe I need to be a walking, talking exigent circumstance. Like I believe that if you are physically like there's a guy like guys like John Jones who can like just mangle you with his hands, but if you ever see him handle a firearm and a long gun, he is surgical. So he could kill you with or without a weapon. Now, I'm not saying I want to run around and kill people, but a man should be capable of being a gentleman and showing that he has the ability to be violent.
I think Jordan Peterson said something along those lines. I'm going to butcher the quote, but he says like, being a good man does not mean that you have to be like a weak man. It's like being a strong man and being a violent man and having the ability to keep that at bay is what makes you a good man.
Yes. And I do believe that balance needs to be there. So that's something like I want to get into. So 2025, I'm going to be looking to do I'm going to be rolling on a mat somewhere.
Come on. I'm down.
But I definitely need to get there.
Listen, I started jiu-jitsu at 33. Uh-huh. And what it did for me at 33, you can't put it on an Excel spreadsheet. It's not tangible.
Yeah.
The confidence, the just overall sense of awareness that I have of my own body and feeling safe and that I could protect my children and protect my wife if it came down to some type of physical altercation, to know that you have the ability to handle yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that so much of the opposite of that, the fear that comes of that, is that most men do not allow themselves to be in a physical altercation. Like you see the guys, and you know this. I mean, you're on the street, you know the deal, right? Like when you, with the guy who's screaming the loudest is the guy who can't do shit.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
But the guy who's quiet, and you said this when we did our 5K, like the guy who's quiet, who's just calm and just like, and he's just chilling.
His knuckles look like he's been punching the concrete. He's got a little cauliflower in his ear. Like those are the guys you got to worry about, because in my experience, it's the quiet guys you got to worry about, and it's not the guy with the biggest mouthpiece.
Yeah,
the guy that's like, I saw a guy one night who was like, please leave me alone. He begged and pleaded with this man, and then the guy didn't want to listen. There's a video out right now. I think it was like a Texas, a Texans game. There's this dude arguing with a guy who is like a world championship.
I saw that video. And his boy pulls him away.
Yeah,
and then it cuts to the montage of him just like lacing up a bag and like lacing up people in the ring.
Annihilating people. That guy thought because he was bigger in stature.
Right.
He was like, yeah, try it. I was like, you were this close to potentially losing your life. So it's shit like that, because I do believe that like some guys are like, I'm big, I'm strong, but like, do you have the skill set? So I've seen the largest of men go down, because there was some bantamweight that just knew how to throw his hands. He knew where to land the punches that would just disassemble. I'm talking about 260, 270 pound men of muscle. Because when you go to these like, bars or clubs, they always pick large men. There's not like, God rest the dead, Patrick Swayze. There's no Daltons from Roadhouse.
Right.
There's not these small guys, right? It's always these monsters, right? And they think because they're big and they can lift things. If you get a guy who knows where to land punches or can just choke you out, you're done. So I don't care how big you are.
Yeah.
So that's something that plays into it, but it's wild. But combat training is on the list.
I like the idea of combat training as well. I've shot a gun maybe 3 times in my life. Mm-hmm. And every time I'm kind of like, I'm like a little scrawny guy in World War II. It's like,
that becomes like a real, like, it's like anything else, right? Reps, right? And then once you learn the reps, then it becomes like you make the smallest of details like large, because if one thing is off on your trigger squeeze, the bullet either go left, right, and won't go to where you want it to go. So it's kind of like get your breathing, find the trigger reset, squeeze, pow, and the guns. And as long as your sight trigger, your sight alignment is there, you're good. Trigger squeeze and sight alignment, and then it's like free throws. You kind of get into a rhythm, and then now it's like ping, 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 and there's nothing better than that sound. There's nothing better. And then if you can transition and because a long gun is a lot easier to shoot than a handgun. There's way more room for error with a handgun. Because if you're death gripping it or you're anticipating, the slightest of movement can throw a shot off. But like I said, it's just like reps. So when you're shooting a long gun, it's like you could kind of look, bing, because there's no kickback. If you're shooting like a 45 or a 9, it's going to be something that kind of comes back a little bit. Long guns, you don't really feel it. So whatever you lack, it'll show in a handgun. So like if you're over gripping, if you're slapping the trigger, it'll all come out in a handgun. You're not going to get that on a long gun. So it's humbling, man.
Yeah. So I can kind of understand that from shooting a compound bow, like that same idea. And there's like this kind of sweet spot where all of a sudden it's no different than any other form of meditation.
Yep.
There's this one moment that you should pull, let go. And if it's a hair, I mean, it's a hair of north and it's a hair south, but like when you land into it, you're like, nah, like, and and
breathing has to be on.
Oh, everything. It's just like a complete alignment of like just mind, body, spirit. And you're just like,
yeah.
And you feel it. And it's, like I said, it's a hair. It's a moment in time that if you see it, it's almost too late.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to your point, it shows on the target, right? You're like dialed in, you have a good grouping. All of a sudden, you're like, bang, you got arrows everywhere.
Yeah, because something's off. So you got to figure that out. And I feel like, when you're shooting, it's kind of the same thing. And so it forces you to slow down just a little bit and pay attention to the minute details.
So you mentioned your journaling practice and kind of circling back to when you were a kid and you were like 19. And I had a very similar experience where I was going through some stuff at my parents' house when they were moving. I was like, oh, here's books on like psychology and philosophy and old journals. I was like, I guess I've always been into these sort of things, right? Yeah. And then there's this blip of time where you lose yourself, and that could be based off of culture. There's so many factors that come into play. And I know you have a small child, but my daughter's 9, and I see it now play out. I see culture, I see society, I see other kids start to affect her internal state. My son's 5. The world's whatever to him. He's just like, he's enjoying it. But you start to lose yourself, and you see the soul, almost the essence of the person, slowly seep out of them. So how was your journaling practice then versus how it is now? And how did that kind of arc play out?
So that was more like random thoughts in the beginning. So there was no real like process. It was like, all right, I got some thoughts, I'm putting it on paper. So I just started writing out random thoughts. Now it's more like, all right, we wake up, we meditate right away. We get that done quick. 10 minutes, get that meditation out. Then it's the Bible app, whatever the scripture is for the day.
So are you reading the Bible start to finish, or are you just kind of taking out chunks?
No, so fun fact about me, I read the first 5 books of the Bible when I was like 12.
So you are, again, full circle, right? Full circle.
I've always, fun fact about me, I wanted to be a priest when I was a kid, which was wild. And I started to like look into some stuff, and I was like, maybe I don't want to do that, but I've always had this affinity for God. So I read the first 5 books, and then, that was just something that I did for like historical context. There's a lot of historical stuff in the Bible. And then like just the stories, in the Bible that you hear, but then like when you read it, it's a little different. And so that's what I do. Like I'm on a Bible plan on the Bible app. So I get a scripture and then I read into the scripture and then I just dig a little bit deeper. And then I find a quote and I throw the quote in my journal. So it looks like verse of the day, quote of the day, and then sometimes I throw a thought and then like something on my moral report card I'll put on there. And that's from the day before. So I get all of that done. So that's more of a process. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't like that when I was 19.
Yeah, my journaling, it'll ebb and flow of being very dialed in with like a prompt or something, or just kind of stream of consciousness. And then, I'll also just kind of keep a notebook to my side and be like, thought, you know what I mean? Like I'm feeling anxious. And then I kind of allow myself to dive and unravel the anxiety or even excitement, right? They're the same thing. I'll just be like, I'm excited about this. Why? And just kind of peel back the onion. Yeah. But I think having a more dialed in intention in the journaling is super helpful. But I also think creating that relationship with the mind, the pen, the paper is just as powerful and can be just as impactful, because sometimes you get caught up in like the intention or like the mantra or whatever the theme of the day is, so to speak. Whereas like it narrows down your vision of just being able to throw up on the pages.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a really powerful thing that I've taken away from journaling, is just allow it to be whatever it is and don't judge it. And then have you ever gone back and read your old journals?
Absolutely. I found the one that I had when I was a kid, when I wrote that letter to God. I found that one and I was like, wow, man, like that's amazing. So that for me, that was like pretty awesome to read, like stuff I was writing. I was like 18, 19. I was pretty dialed in back then.
For being 18, 19.
For being 18, yeah. Just like, cause it was like, there were goals that I had in there and I completed all of them.
Were you aware that you completed all of them, or is it only hindsight that allowed you to realize that you completed them?
Hindsight.
Yeah.
There was only one major goal. And, that was just to become a police officer. And so I had a high school teacher, shout out to Mr. Edward Frazier, who I'm still in contact with to this day. He gave me a book by Napoleon Hill, to think and Grow Rich in America.
Great book.
And he gave me a sheet, like a spreadsheet. It was weird. It was like long-term and short-term goals. And it had these like little boxes, like what you needed to do to get there. What do you do when you get there? And what was the outcome? It was something like that, to that effect. And I found that. And I had filled it all out. And there's like two things that I put on there. Both of those things were accomplished. So to find those things, from 19 to I'm 42 now, to be like, damn, I was pretty locked in. So I've always had the idea of this, but just it's taken some years to kind of really lock in. So when I say lock in, like what does it mean to me? It's just to be able to make sure that I'm doing everything possible to be the best version of myself. And those things kind of revolve around those three things that I mentioned: spiritually, physically, and mentally.
Does locked in have a feeling for you?
Yeah. It's a peaceful place for me. It is just, you ever wake up and it's like serenity when you wake up? It's very hard to explain.
Two small children know.
You have like when I wake up, it's like I look around. That's why I always look at my feet. Frank Vos, he's always like, look at your feet, look where you're at right now. And like from when I was a child, one of the most humbling experiences I ever had was I went to my aunt's apartment. It was last year. I think it was like Thanksgiving or something like that. And so my upbringing was beautiful because I had my family so close to me, right? So I lived in apartment 4B, and right underneath me was my aunt, right? And I had 4 cousins downstairs. And on the other side of the building, it was my other aunt. I had 2 cousins there. And, when you're a child, the concept of space is wild because I used to think this apartment was freaking huge, right? So I'm like, I'm sitting in this apartment that I basically grew up, because it is a mirror of the apartment that I grew up in. Actually, the apartment that she's in now was my Titi Norma's apartment, which was 3B. So she moved from the other side underneath. And I'm sitting in the living room. I'm like, holy shit. I grew up here till I was like 13, and I thought this place was humongous. And it was like, I remember 8 of us at the dinner table, and my grandmother just like giving us all food, like all my, my cousins. And it was just like, wow, like so many great memories were in this apartment, but it is not a very big apartment, and I was just like, to where I live now, I was like, this is a blessing. And I put that into the air, like where I live, exactly how my house is set up, like that's exactly what I wanted. Like, is it my dream house? I would say yeah, because I envisioned this, I manifested this, even from the detailing in the garage. I have a garage gym. From the detailing in the garage gym, like I manifested that. That was in my brain. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have this on the wall, and I'm gonna have something I can squat. I got something I can run on. Everything is there. I manifested that. It was in my mind. And so when I wake up and realize that I'm in a place that I prayed for, that's the serenity for me. That's like, damn. So you always have to remember to be grateful for the things that you prayed for, because there's a point in time where you might get derailed. Like some shit will happen at work, and you get caught up in the nonsense at work, or something that happened, like, and you're like in like a friend group, and you get all like, man, it sucks. And then you just got to slow down and be like, how far have I come? Got it. Yeah. So for me, it was just from being in that small, 2-bedroom apartment to where I live now, it's like, God is good, man.
Yeah, I remember driving to my aunt's in Connecticut, it seeming like it was just on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
And I drive there, I'm there in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, man. It's like your perception from a child to a man is wild, man. So I was just like, man, I constantly have to remind myself how blessed I am.
And the word manifesting again kind of gets thrown around to kind of circle back to that point earlier. And you could sit and you could think like, oh, can I sit and manifest the world and the life I want? But unless you take action, right? Action is so supported, right? It's so supported. It's the foundation. It's the pillars, right, if you will, to the manifestation that, you're sitting in my imagination right now. Like when I did at the Pod Shed, people come like, oh, this is great. I'm like, this is my imagination come to life. Like this is my soul come to life in a 3D tangible. Like if I showed you the picture of what it was, and I'll post that, the picture of what it was, what I envisioned and what it is, you'd be like, oh shit, right? Exactly like your garage, exactly like your house. Like the whole idea of like, this came to me. This was not my idea. This is an idea that came to me from somewhere beyond myself.
Yep, something higher than you. Yep.
And I have just taken action on it. And then there's, again, the serendipities and the external things that, just confirmation that you're on the right path. But along that, to circle back to our previous point, as you start to unfold and get on the right path, there is so much resistance. There is so much of those devil on your shoulder pulling you back into the comfort and the smallness of who you once were. Mm-hmm. And I think things like going back to old places as a child, doing things that you did as a child is so important to be able to realize how far you've come and still get the motivation, the drive, the fuel to do more.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy that you brought that up, because like the fuel to want more. Like I really feel there's a small group of people that want to do more.
Really?
Yeah, dude. I see it every day. Some people are very comfortable in this little bubble, and they will not pull themselves out of that little space.
Do you think that they have the awareness that they are in that space? Because like when I work with people, like on a one-on-one coaching situation, so many of them have the awareness. And I'm like, you just being here shows that you have the awareness.
Look at your environment.
Right.
Like people want, they're coming to you because they want to become better. You understand?
Right.
I'm in a space where people are less like, I don't want that. I'm good right here. And that's why I value being in rooms like this. Because there's people who are trying to push the needle. A lot of people will get to a place and be like, I'm comfy right here. I don't need to do anything else. This is what I know. This is what I'm kind of good at. I'm here. And no one wants to put themselves in uncomfortable situations. I don't want to say no one, but there's a small group of people who want to put themselves in uncomfortable situations. And it's unfortunate, because like that's when you really find out who you are, by being in a place of discomfort.
You have to.
You have to, but some people don't like that. Like, oh, this hurts. I'm not going to do it anymore. Like, does it hurt, or you just don't like the way it feels? Like, are you physically incapable of doing this, or is it a little uncomfortable? You get a little lactic acid burn. You get a little sore the next day. You don't want to come back. Is that it? Because if that's it, then you just, put your big boy britches on and bring yourself back. But some people just it's like, oh no, this hurts, or I'm not good at it. If everybody was good at it, that kills me. I'm not good at it, so I'm not going to do it.
Why should you be?
Yeah.
My daughter, not to throw her under the bus, but she'll have these these moments like, oh, I'm whatever it is, right? Jiu-jitsu or acting or whatever it is. And like, my response is, why should you be good at it?
Yeah.
Because you feel that you want to be good at it. That's great, but you should not be good at it. Yeah. If you want to be good at it, it's going to take work.
It's going to take work.
It's going to take a lot of work. Yeah. But you shouldn't be good at it. Why should you? Who are you to be good at anything off the rip? Now, there's natural talent, no question. But how many times have we seen in sports or any endeavor, natural talent completely fall by the wayside and outworked by hard work?
Yeah.
See it all the time.
I see it, especially like with young men, right? You get these kids that were like stars in the 9U, 10U. Yeah. And they get to that age where like puberty starts to hit these boys. So like 14, 15 is where you see the separation. And then the kid who was a superstar at 9U, 10U is now regular run of the mill. And it's like, there was this one kid that I used to coach. I'm not going to mention his name, but he realized that he was like falling behind a bit and just studied the game a little bit more, spent a little bit more time in the gym. And he was leaps and bounds ahead of the most athletic guy on the team because he was doing the work on and off the field. So when he realized, like, damn, like I'm not the biggest, I'm not the strongest, I'm not the fastest. What can I do to help me just get a little bit better? He started to study the game and understand coverages and calls. And like, you notice when teams would like audible, he'd be like, oh, like I studied enough film to know that when they see this lineup, when they see a 4-3, with the outside linebacker stack, they do this. And he would just be there at the right time doing the right thing. He would execute. And he ended up playing like high level football because he paid attention to detail. He goes, I'm not the guy anymore, but I'm still good enough to be able to play with these athletic guys. I'm just way smarter. So he had the self-actualization to be like, all right, this is what I need to do. Mm-hmm. Most guys would be like, all right, I'm not the fastest, biggest, strongest, whatever. You have to want to be that. You have to. And if you don't, then you're gonna remain where you're at. But and it takes a unique individual to recognize that, because you're gonna have to do some work that you probably don't want to do.
Well, the awareness is the most important thing, right? If you have the awareness, you're presented at least with opportunity. It's like if you've ever, played chess, or, I'll bring it to jiu-jitsu again. It's like there's an awareness and there's a studying and there's and this is where I get fucking caught up in the endless rabbit hole of opportunity, because it's like, oh, here's one thing, but that thing leads to 10 other things, and this thing leads to 10 other things. And if I move, and that's like high level chess too, right? If you see, and I don't play high level chess by any stretch, but I know how the pieces move. And seeing it, you're like, okay, if I do this, then that guy could do that. Then there's so much else going on.
So much of different variables. Yeah.
There's so much else going on. And that's where like you can kind of get lost in that, and you can get defeated by that, and you can get uncomfortable by that. Or you could just, to our earlier point, is just slow down, stay grounded, and then make the best move that you can make according to the situation that's at hand.
Yes.
And in hopes that the next thing will unfold and play out. But if you get too caught up in too far down the line, or, getting caught up in all the moves that you have to make, or if that guy's like, I am what I am, and this is me, and this is my weakness, right? Let's not pay attention to that. Let's just leave that by the side. Then you get comfortable in the discomfort, and to a fault.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because you can get comfortable in discomfort and do something, or you can get comfortable in discomfort and stay uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, you're right. That is, most people wouldn't even mention the latter of what you just mentioned. It's like, I correlate everything to coaching, because you see different archetypes on the field. You got the kid that's like the soldier, and
sure,
that like, yes sir, no sir, and then you got the kid who's like the like prima donna. He looks good. He plays fast. And then you have like this like the grunt, the kid that's just a trench bully, and he's just doing all the unseen work. So you get these different archetypes, and you learn so much about human behavior by like coaching and being around the different types of archetypes, because you can't coach, one way to different archetypes. You have to adjust. So like if this kid is this way, then I have to now when I have to lead with like positive reinforcement. This guy takes to something different, whatever that may be. But just learning how to adjust. I think that's a skill set that people need to learn as well. How to address different types of human beings in different situations and settings. That is like that's been a little bit of a learning curve for me.
Yeah, well, everyone learns differently. Everyone needs different validation, right?
Yeah,
everyone needs
absolutely.
different validation. But here's the thing: everyone needs validation
At some point,
right? Everyone needs some form of validation. It's How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's a great book. Great book.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, everybody wants to be seen, right? And everybody wants to be essentially unconditionally loved. Whether you're the prima donna, you're the grunt work, whatever you are, you're still putting out this message to the world of like, this is who I am. See me and love me and validate me and provide me with unconditional love. And that's what true leadership does. That's what a true coach does, a manager, whatever you are. You see the individual past the performance or the back of the card, and you see the actual individual, and you're able to give them what they need in a way that is almost like a mental, step ahead of them, right? And let them step into that role. And that's what true leadership is.
Absolutely. I'm happy you mentioned that. True leadership is that. In my line of work, it's a test. And there's a difference between supervisors. And there's a difference between a leader, and I mean, we know the difference between a supervisor.
Sure,
and a leader,
of course.
I think a lot of people don't, just because you can pass an exam doesn't make you a great leader. And, I think that's a huge part of like, I think where, especially in the law enforcement space, like some people don't know how to deal with those kind of supervisors. Like it's tough, man, because you got to move through a room and adjust, to each, because every boss has a different, leadership. They have different leadership tactics, and I think that's where a lot of things get lost in translation. So you have to learn how to just be. You got to be mid ground. I feel like that's life. Like you have to be middle of the road and then adjust when need be. But if you come in too high or too low, then I can definitely throw some shit off. But that's why I have to focus on, because I'm a super intense individual. Like if I woke up and just walked out the house with the intensity level that I wake up with, it's not a good day. It's not. That's why I gotta like dial it down and get mid-level. Because growing up, I was a very reactive person. Like if you did something to me, I was like quick to do something back to you. Now I'm older, a little bit more mature. So it's like I'm processing. And then I'm like, all right, well, maybe this person is going through something. So I'm going to let that slide. Because you can pay attention. Like I am a people watcher.
I'll go out for dinner with my wife and she'll say, stop staring at those people. And I'm making up stories and I have the whole dynamic and I love it.
And human communication is like 80% nonverbal. Body language is everything. And sometimes I can walk into a room and I can see somebody like, oh, they're having a bad day, or I'm paying attention to like, whatever like is playing in the background. So like if I walk into a room and somebody's on the computer and I'm like looking at them and they just look overwhelmed, right? I'll ask a question, hey, is everything all right? And then they might get into why they look like that. So you have to ask the right questions at the right time. And body language will show me everything, And I just remember this one situation in particular, and I didn't even put two and two together at the time, but somebody that I knew was going through something, and then they were on the computer, and I was like, hey, is everything all right? And you could just tell that they were just fucking just unraveling. And then that was the beginning of like something bigger that happened. And I probably should have been like, hey, you should probably go speak to somebody. But some people aren't receptive to that type of stuff. I don't want to push anything on anybody, but I noticed it, and I probably should have pulled them to the side and been like, you probably need to speak to somebody. But the whole thing is, the point is, I saw it. And I tell people all the time, pay attention to body language. Somebody could be telling you something, but their body's telling you something completely different. So really pay attention. When you ask questions, really ask questions and pay attention. I think a lot of people just read a script. You know, they walk into a room, hey, how's it going, guys? And then
water cooler conversation.
Yeah, you know.
How about that game last night? And I'm just like, oh, please, I can't have this conversation. And you could feel it. There's an energetic, like when someone's sincere in their approach and their questioning or even a conversation, you could feel it. There's a real humanistic, non-tangible that's transpiring there. And then when there's like those water cooler, like you get to a point where like, I can't even engage in this behavior because it's just like.
They're just reading off the script. That's all they're doing. You know what I mean? And it's like.
Was there a moment in life that stands out to you where you started to respond versus react to things?
Yeah. It's probably like.
Because obviously in your line of work, that is everything. But was there something outside of work, or even if it was work, that really stands out to you where you said, oh, I have a choice between what happens and how I show up? And in that arc of time, it is essentially endless, right? But I have a choice in that moment.
Yeah. It was some personal life stuff where I was just like, yeah, we need to not be reactive anymore. Like we can, control the controllables is like, I live by that mantra. And like, I can't control what somebody says to me, but I can control how I react to it. And, perception is half the battle. I may react in a way that may be amplified because of like how I look or the setting that I'm in. So that's why I learned to be even keeled, where I'm like, okay, cool. Let's process what this person just said to me.
Yeah, for me, it was. I mean, it stood out as a moment for sure in my own personal life where I realized, and then everything kind of changed after that. Like that one particular moment stands out to me, and then after that, it was like, oh, it was like a complete unlock in my brain and how I showed up in the world. I was like, oh shit! Like I have like it's a superpower.
Yeah,
I have this new discovered superpower where I can now respond to the world and what's happening around me, people, places, whatever it is, and I have a choice on how I actually want to show up. And I can react. And listen, being a parent, it is so easy to react. It's so ingrained in us. And I try to give myself that grace. And I'll do the old, if you name it, you could tame it. I'll look at my kids and be like, Dad's going to lose his mind right now. You know, when Dad goes to that place and we don't like Dad, we're getting there. That was all day yesterday with my son. I was just like, remember this morning? We're going back to this morning and it's the afternoon. Can we please start changing our behavior? But at the same time, it's empowering, and it also gives the people around you an opportunity to adjust accordingly, right? Yeah. Like if you walk into a room and you're just this, hey, how's it going? All right, good. And it's so much of this, you said it perfectly, reading off a script, human interaction, say hello, right? Like if you show up in a way of that, then you're not giving the opportunity to that person who may be going through something to say, yeah, man, I'm really fucked up right now. Like I'm going through X, Y, and Z. And in that moment, again, that hey, what's going on could lead to a whole different caveat of things.
Yeah. You got to ask the right questions at the right time. And that's if you're paying attention and you really care about human interactions. I really feel like a lot of people just don't give a shit. So I'm one of those guys, like, I care. So I'm going to ask if I feel like something's wrong. And if you don't want to tell me, you don't have to tell me. But I'm going to, I pay attention to detail.
So as someone who just finished the New York City Marathon, you mentioned kind of some type of your tactical hand. What else is, what else do you want to accomplish? Because obviously you do so much. What else is on your agenda, and how are you going to kind of go after it?
That's a great question. Right now, like I've accomplished everything that I wanted to accomplish. Like I said, the hard things are on the calendar. Just making it to detective. That's like the last goal on my career, like checklist. And after that, and I can kind of just I'll create some new goals and figure that out. I'm coming up close to retirement, so I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to do after police work. And I think it's going to be something in the wellness space. I mean, my dream job would be able to like work for a non-for-profit and just like work out every day. You know what I mean? Like, and there's ways to get it done. I just got to figure out how to get it done. So getting a blueprint to that.
Yeah, that's interesting because, it boils down to these micro steps of every day showing up, but it's almost allowing those to be vague in a sense, right? It's like, I have this goal. I know this is how I want to show up in the world every day. This is what I want my house to look like. This is what I want my life to look like on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment operation system. Like every day, this is what my life. But where I am is here. So how do I get to there? And there is this letting go process, but yet you need to be so dialed into a process. So how have you kind of, allowed yourself to let things unfold, but then also be present in what you're doing? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Just making sure that, my plan aligns with God's plan. That's it. That has taken some time to.
So how do you know when it is?
Because shit'll just fall into place.
Yeah.
Sometimes we force things and it ain't gonna go. And then I feel like sometimes things just kind of happen and you end up right where you need to be. And I had a hard time accepting that part of the process. Like, cause I think there were certain things that I wanted in my life that necessarily didn't suit me. And so learning how to just let God create this space for me and being like, okay, I'm just gonna, your will is whatever it is, and I'll just have to fall in line with it. I used to fight it a lot, man. And it's just, you waste so much energy fighting it. And this is where I need to be. So this is what I'm doing. That's what I'm saying. Like my life has always been like the hard way. Like you got to go that way instead of everybody's got the express, like Jay's got to take the detour, the back roads, go all the way the fuck around to get to where you need to be. And so, creating these goals. Every time I created a goal, there was always some kind of speed bump in the way to slow me down or make me feel like I wanted to give up. And I think that's when you have to show up and be the best version of yourself, when like you feel like you want to quit, you want to throw your hands up and say, fuck it. Just making sure that you show up for yourself. It ain't easy by any means, but it's all part of the process. Nothing worth having ever comes easy.
I had one time had a college professor said that no man would ever trade his life with a pig. Which I understood what he was saying in essence is like, you would not want to go from like a thinking person to just a being of just consumption and just not self-aware, right? Would you, knowing where you are now and the struggles you've been through and the struggles that are ahead of you to accomplish your goals, would you say you would choose a path less difficult? Would you go back and say, fuck this, I want to just go clock in a job, clock out of a job and be done?
I'm so accustomed to the work that I can't even imagine living in it any other way. Like I'm just,
because there's no going back. No. Like once you pry open that door a little bit, it's over.
It's over. Yeah.
It's over.
I'm big on grunt work. I like to do a lot of this stuff when like the cameras aren't on. I think people just think I showed up as this person. So much work had to be put in. A lot of dark times, a lot of like, self-reflection that goes on outside of what people see the end result. So no, I couldn't even imagine it, man. My life is exactly where it should be. Everything that's happened to me has happened for a reason, and I'm better for it. I couldn't even imagine it. Like people are like, would you do anything different? No. Nope. Because I wouldn't be who I am. So
yeah. And being able to really mean that is a totally different thing, right? Like realizing that what you are, it's that scene in The Matrix when they get in the elevator, if they go see the Keymasters, like what happened and could have happened any other way.
Yeah.
Is it because we're still alive, right? Like you are where you are because of all the big things and all the small things that have led you to where you currently are. And had one of those things been different, it's the butterfly effect, right? the whole course of action of life and everything else could be completely different.
I say that and people don't even like, what do you mean about the butterfly effect? I said, watch the movie, you see what I'm talking about.
I never even saw the movie, but I know of the theory.
That shit will freak you out if you watch that movie, because like, if, you know, and it's like that in Back to the Future. I'm a big Back to the Future
guy,
of
course.
You know? They go back, they start fucking with things, and it's the altered universe. And that's what I'm saying. I don't know because if I change something, it's gonna change exactly where I am right now. So why would I? When I'm blessed. So why would I change it? You know what I'm saying? Like I wake up every day. I don't have to look over my shoulder. You know what I mean? Because there's some people who create a lifestyle for themselves where they could never be at peace or at ease because of people that they've done wrong, or like, you know, maybe they were taking part in some nefarious activity. I don't know, but like I can sleep at night with a clear conscience. So I don't think I would change anything.
Yeah, no. And if you see yourself, then you're really fucked, right? Thank you so much for doing this, man. I really appreciate it. This is a long time coming. Yeah, and you know, sometimes you try to put things on a calendar, right? And you're like, I'm going to do it this day. We're going to do it this day. But things happen exactly how they're supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And they unfolded.
This is a perfect day for it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It couldn't have happened any other way, right? Yeah. Like post marathon, with the gold medal on. It's just it's really cool to see you on your journey and all that you're doing. Especially coming from a father who is in law enforcement. You know, obviously you do so much with that community, and bringing the awareness to that, I think, is so important, because outside of just men in general who, you know, lead lives of quiet desperation, there is this like silent service that's happening, you know, whether it be military, police, firefighters, that, you know, they are struggling in ways that, you know, us common folk can't even see fathomable.
Yeah, but man, I mean, you got to get your flowers too. You creating a space where men can come together and be vulnerable, man, and strengthen that. I think a lot of guys don't realize that. Like, if you get around a group of like men and understand like this is a safe space, so much power is in this room when you're able to do that. So you being able to guide men and put them on the right path, making sure they're aligned with where they need to be and what they need to be doing. It's like guys like you, Dave Regina, Sean Degnan, like that whole ACE crew are out there creating spaces for men where they can do powerful things and make men again. Like I feel like we're losing that so much now, man. It's like if you don't have other men to help amplify that vibration, that bandwidth, you know, we're going to lose it, and we kind of are, man. Like if you pay attention to what's going on in the world, and like you know we're in a testosterone crisis, you know, and men are lacking accountability. You need to be in rooms with men who are of high value, because that's how you'll, you know, level up. Yeah. So thank you for what you do, bro.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
One last thing. So you mentioned your high school teacher, who obviously you're still in touch with. So obviously some form of a mentor. Yeah. How important have mentors been in your life, and how can other guys find mentors?
Oh, man, mentors have changed my life, man. Handful of guys in my life, but Mr. Frazier, Ed Frazier, my boy Hippolito Gill, who's a deputy inspector in the NYPD, and Michael Amante, all guys I consider to be mentors. And they've changed my life because they've helped me see things in myself that I didn't. And, you know, when men of high value see value in you, I suffer from imposter syndrome. So like when you have...
As you wear a gold medal around your neck.
But it's like... You know,
I get it.
You know, it's something that was rooted in my childhood. And then when you have great men telling you that you're great, you have no choice but to believe in yourself. So, you know, if you're lacking anything, get in a room with high value men, because they're going to tell you about yourself. They're going to tell you you're great. They're going to tell you you need to level up. They're going to tell you something. Get in that room and then allow people with life experience to help you live your life. I mean, I think that's clutch. I think a lot of men are kind of like, you know, they have too much bravado to take advice or to be, you know, led down a path that they don't even see. But I think somebody from the outside looking in can be like, I think this is a good fit for you. Like I'm starting a mentor program today. I got a meeting at 5:30. Lieutenant Mike Almonte was the guy who set me up for that, because he saw something in me. You know, he's like, listen, you coach young men. You know, I've had guys that, you know, grew up in my neighborhood that like looked up to me, and I didn't know this till I was, way older, and they're in their 30s now, and they're like, oh man, I used to look up to you. He's like, yo man, you are in a position to lead men. You should do it. And I said, listen man, if you see it in me, then I might as well go out there and do it. I've been doing it. I just didn't know. So just mentors are huge. Some people want to give free game, and you should take it. And if you're in a space where you don't know what you want to do with your life, get in a room with some high value people. They'll put you on the right path.
Yeah, they show you your blind spots.
Absolutely. Right. Perfect. Yeah, you just hit the nail on the head. They're going to see things that you don't see.
And listen, that's the beautiful thing. It comes from life experience, right? With all due respect on your account. But if I saw a cop sitting on the side of the road, right, and he's tagging people for whatever, and I see someone come the opposite way, I'm going to flash my high beams, be like, hey, listen, there's a cop over there. Like, he's catching people speeding, It's almost our duty as human beings, not even just as men, but as human beings, to be able to point out the road bumps and the speed bumps. And now you could take my advice or not take it. That's up to you. But it's our duty to almost offer that, that's active service to other people. And I think one key thing you said there was in regards to, childhood. I think, reverse engineering people and who they are in their lives and what they've experienced. And that goes for your mentors too. It's like, do you look at this person and say, I want to be like them? I want to show up the way they show up, whether it be in, physical endeavors, spiritual endeavors, whatever, mental endeavors. Do I want to show up in a way that's like how they are? And if the answer is yes, stick around them. Yeah. Osmosis, just be around them, pick up the energy. And if the answer is no, be aware of that, but it doesn't mean you have to quit your job or whatever it is, but be aware of that. But now start making an exit strategy, start making a plan that is in more alignment of who you are and how you want to show up in the world. And again, reverse engineering your own life and stepping into that. Oh, where's this coming from, right? Like you said, like I suffer from imposter syndrome. It rooted back to my childhood. Well, where did that come from? How did that show up? What was the first time? How did it make you feel? And how could you recognize that and acknowledge it? Same thing as those dark thoughts on your shoulder, and now move past it and move through it and sit with it and have a cup of coffee and hear it out. Yeah. Because that's important.
It is definitely. Just having that mentor. Or that person, and like I only will take advice from people like I respect. You know what I mean? Like I ain't gonna just take off regular, Joe Schmo off the street's gonna tell me, hey, you should be doing this.
Although he might have some good advice, though. Sometimes
he might. But I if I don't know you well enough, then I'm not going to. And I also feel like if you're not aligned with the values that I'm aligned with, then why should I take advice from you? You know what I'm saying? Like, because someone can give you bad advice, and in their mind, it's good advice. So I just gotta make sure that I'm paying attention to who's giving me the advice. But human beings in general just learn how to be humble and take advice from others, because sometimes people see things in you that you don't see. Like you say, they can show you the blind spots. And I was reluctant for many years, but then I realized that it does help.
Yeah, being humble is huge. Being humbled constantly, daily, in cold plunges or jujitsu or running marathons. Get yourself really uncomfortable and sit in that darkness and just be okay with it. That's it, man. Where can people connect with you if they want to find out more what you're doing? Where can they hook up with you?
The Real Jumpman Jay. I'm on TikTok now.
Me too. I just got on the TikTok adventure.
Yeah, that's growing.
I have no idea how to navigate that thing.
Yeah, that's a weird world. I'm on TikTok and Instagram. Awesome. The Real Jumpman Jay.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. This has been a tremendous conversation.
Thank you, my brother. It was a pleasure to be here today.
Awesome.